If you're an executive or maybe a sales leader, let me just start with a question for you. What if the single biggest drain on your team hitting quota? What if it isn't the market or the product or even, some sudden competitor move? What if it's something much more personal, like a silent saboteur hiding deep inside your best people?
Hmm. That sounds almost like a psychological profile, doesn't it? But, the numbers often back this kind of thing up. Today we're doing a deep dive into sources from Wyn Nathan Davis. He's a business consultant, sales recruiter, associated with the sales experts. And their work zeroes in on this, well, surprising idea. Failure is a choice.
Okay, failure is a choice. That's a pretty provocative claim, especially in sales, right? Where everything feels so dependent on external factors. So our mission today is really to cut through the noise. Find maybe 2 or 3 really potent, actionable insights you can use, like right now. We want to give you tools, whether you're hiring, trying to build that internal strength, or maybe coaching your current team past these self-limiting beliefs.
Exactly. And the foundation we're really unpacking here is this core idea. The main roadblock for most people, even really skilled people with resources, big opportunities, it isn't usually a lack of ability. It's that fear, the fear of failure, and definitely the fear of rejection. If we can get a handle on that root psychological barrier and maybe disarm it, the pipeline doesn't just flow; it could really flood.
Okay, let's unpack that central idea then. The source argues failure rarely comes from outside events. But hang on, is that really fair? I mean, what about a sudden recession? Or, a key supplier goes bust? Or a competitor just slashes prices overnight? Aren't some failures genuinely external?
That's a completely fair point to raise. And it's exactly where we need to apply this deep dive perspective. When Nathan Davis isn't saying external events don't happen. Of course they do. What he's saying, or the source material suggests, is that true debilitating failure is not defined by the event itself. It's defined by our internal response to it. What's really fascinating here is identifying the real enemy, these self-limiting beliefs. The source is super clear on this. We doubt ourselves, we lack confidence, and crucially, we convince ourselves we aren't really worthy of success.
Ah, okay. So those external things, the recession, the competitor, they're more like the test, the thing that reveals a pre-existing psychological weakness. So for a sales leader listening, this means maybe a stalled pipeline isn't just a training issue or a market issue. It could be a psychological block making rejections feel, well, intensely personal, painful, which naturally leads to less activity, right?
Yeah.
Precisely. And the source makes a really brilliant point comparing this to children. Think about it. Kids don't have this inherent fear. They just live. They play. They fall off their bikes 50 times, learn, get back up. No hesitation, none of that paralyzing fear of rejection. It's like they're born with a successful internal operating system. We actually learn to fail. Over time, doubt creeps in, maybe reinforced by society, school, whatever. And we get conditioned to fear trying again. That conditioning is the sabotage we need to root out of our sales culture.
Okay, if we're conditioned to fail, how do we undo that? How do we decondition? This brings us to, I think, the first really big actionable strategy here. It's about redefining failure itself. The source argues failure is a choice, and it's based on 3 sort of foundational premises. What are those rules? How do they turn the sales game upside down? Right? These 3 premises are really the bedrock of what the sales experts might call success immunity. They help build resilience, no matter the outcome. So premise 1 is reality is perception. Simple idea, profound implications. How you view challenges literally shapes the reality you experience. So if you look at Q4 targets during a slump and think this is impossible, well, your brain starts looking for proof that it is impossible. Activity slows. But if you see it as a chance to stand out, to grab market share while others freeze, then you start the quarter with a completely different winning mindset.
That makes sense. It immediately impacts strategy, doesn't it? A leader seeing threats tightens the belt, cuts risks. But one who sees opportunity might actually invest, maybe go for those high-risk, high-reward plays.
Exactly right. Okay, premise 2, participation is success. This one is huge for morale, I think. If you fully engage in an opportunity, you enjoy the prep, the chase, the discovery calls, the presentation you've already succeeded in a way. Success here is defined by the quality of your engagement, not just whether the contract gets signed.
Ah, I see how that could take the sting out of a lost deal. If you know you did everything right, you executed flawlessly, then the loss becomes data, a learning moment, not some personal failure.
Which leads perfectly into the 3rd premise and maybe the most striking one. Avoidance is failure. If you walk away from an opportunity because you're afraid of failing, afraid of hearing no, then you've consciously chosen to fail. You didn't fail because the market said no. You failed because you said no to yourself first.
Oh, okay. That reframes every single activity metric we track. Think about that experienced salesperson. They know they need to make 20 cold calls today, but instead, they spend an hour tweaking an email template. They're avoiding the friction, aren't they? Under this definition, they've chosen failure before even picking up the phone.
It's the ultimate internal test of commitment, really. The source suggests this kind of internal preemptive failure. It's far more damaging to careers, to organizations, than any external no. Look, if a deal falls through because of competitor pricing, fine. That's market data. You learn, you adjust. But if a deal is lost because the rep was just too scared to ask for the business, that's a leadership issue. It's rooted in that conditioning we talked about.
Okay, so if avoidance is the real failure here, and we know it stems from this deep internal fear, how do we equip ourselves? How do we equip our teams to actually push past that fear? The sources say the answer isn't just more skills analysis or, expensive motivational speakers. What's the specific root cause it identifies, the thing that really needs fixing?
Well, the root cause, and this brings us neatly to the second major strategy, is identified as a fundamental lack of self-love and self-esteem. Now, for our audience of executives, let's frame this professionally, right? It's about resilience. When your internal sense of acceptance, your sense of worth, is low, your bandwidth for handling setbacks shrinks a lot. Every rejection feels like proof, confirmation that you are, in fact, unworthy. And that is a core psychological issue that just sabotages risk-taking.
Right. And this is where we get that key tactical takeaway, the actual mental strategy someone can use almost immediately. The source talks about a simple but apparently profoundly powerful visualization exercise designed specifically to rebuild that self-esteem quickly. Could you walk us through those steps? Because this feels like the critical tool we can actually give our teams today.
Yeah, absolutely. The exercise is really about accessing a state of unconditional internal acceptance quickly, bypassing the brain's fear centers. So, step one, think of a specific challenge you've been avoiding. Maybe it's that tough conversation with a difficult prospect, or making that really high-stakes pitch you need huge confidence for. Get specific. Step two. Now, visualize a parent holding a newborn child. Really picture that scene. The source stresses this. It has to be an image of pure, unconditional love. No judgment, no expectations of performance, just love. Step three. Now, feel that circle of love, that absolute acceptance. Let that feeling kind of expand. Feel it physically if you can. Step four. And here's the crucial part. Imagine you are both the parent offering that unconditional love and the child receiving it. At the same time, you are accepting yourself completely. That feeling is self-love in action.
That immediate shift in perspective, it's fascinating. Why does something so simple work? Especially as a mental hack for high-pressure sales situations. Well, think about where fear often comes from. It's the amygdala, right? That primitive part of the brain screaming danger when it perceives rejection or threat. When you intentionally flood your system with this feeling of unconditional love and acceptance, which is like the highest form of internal validation, you're essentially telling your nervous system, I'm safe, fundamentally safe. Regardless of what happens externally, holding on to that feeling literally dissolves the fear response. It creates instant courage. And when you go back and think about that challenge from step one, it just feels lighter, less intimidating. You've mentally reset your personal risk meter.
Okay, that makes the jump from sort of abstract concept to practical tool much clearer. It's almost like emotional regulation on demand.
Yeah.
All right, let's move to the third major strategy then. What does injecting this self-love, this internal validation, what does it mean for us as executives?
As sales leaders, beyond just our own targets, this is where the impact really multiplies across the organization, isn't it?
It really does. And it raises a critical question. What kind of culture does a leader with strong self-esteem actually build? See, when you operate from a place of fundamental self-acceptance, fear loses its power over you. Challenges stop being scary threats to your worth and start looking, well, exciting, like opportunities for growth. And because of that, you tend to lead with more transparency, more stability, and honestly, probably less rigidity.
And if the leader is less afraid of failure themselves, they empower the team to fail forward too. Is that the idea?
That's exactly it. The organizational multiplier effect is this. As you accept yourself more fully, you naturally become more accepting of the inevitable flaws and setbacks in others. And that is absolutely critical for organizational success. Why? Because it immediately improves relationships. It fosters genuine psychological safety. It boosts team collaboration. High self-esteem in leaders translates directly into a better, more resilient culture. A culture where team members feel safe enough to try, to push boundaries, maybe to fall sometimes, but ultimately to succeed. and that is the only real path to world-class sales success.
Okay, that pulls it all together nicely. So, to kind of synthesize this deep dive for you listening, failure isn't some destiny handed down to you, it's always a decision. We covered that avoidance, driven by fear, that's the real failure. The root cause is often weak self esteem, a lack of internal acceptance. And the powerful tactical fix is that self love visualization exercise. It's like a cognitive hack for instant resilience.
Yeah, and if we connect this to the really big picture, the work from the sales experts strongly suggests we're all actually born wired for success. It's the conditioning over time that teaches us to fear and therefore to fail. So maybe the true goal of really great sales leadership, it isn't just managing the CRM data or, auditing training modules, important, yes. But maybe the deeper goal is actively working to decondition that fear in your team, rewarding the initiative, the resilience, not just the final outcome. That's where sustainable long-term success really lies, I think.
Makes sense. So, for you listening who want to explore these strategies more deeply, especially when it comes to things like recruiting for resilience, training differently, retaining top performers, and really achieving that world-class sales success, we definitely encourage you to look into the full resource offerings over at thesalesexperts.com. The information we talked about today, it's really just the beginning of how you can choose success, get rid of those limiting beliefs, and potentially change the whole trajectory of your organization just by embracing internal acceptance. Go make that choice today.